The Tea Biz podcast delivers tea news that you need to know. A recap of the week's major headlines with commentary and cultural trends hosted by Dan Bolton. It is the voice of origin for tea professionals and enthusiasts worldwide.
Tea is captivating, complex, and more intricate than anyone can fully master. That's why the Tea Biz portal brings together 40 voices fluent in 12 languages to share the story of tea. Our strength lies in storytelling by professionals who have grown up in the tea lands and speak their native tongue. Hello, everyone. Here are this week's headlines. A typhoon deluges South China's tea lands. Floods halt production at 30 Upper Assam tea gardens. And Argentina moves its GI-protected tea origin to market. Plus, a world of tea comes to Seattle. Festival organizers Andrew Goodman and Virginia Wright preview the 2026 Northwest Tea Festival, September 26th, 27th, at the Seattle Center in Seattle, Washington. They explain how a sold-out exhibitor hall brings together teas from China, Taiwan, Japan, India, Africa, Korea, and Vietnam, how curious newcomers can sample without feeling overwhelmed, and how presentations, workshops, and tea bar sessions turn tasting into learning. Andrew also describes what admission is and why the festival has become an annual reunion supported by a dedicated volunteer community. Buy tickets and explore the program at nwtfestival.org. In memoriam, Sir Ian Wood. We remember Sir Ian Wood, who died at 84 in Aberdeen. Through the Wood Foundation, his philanthropy strengthened East Africa's tea communities, improving smallholder livelihoods and creating lasting opportunity. More in a minute, but first, this important message.
What makes a perfect cup of Ceylon tea? The perfect cup is from the tea businesses that ensure the protection of all the children living within their tea estates. We salute Kailani Valley, Telawakili, Bogawanthalawa, Harana, and Elliptia tea estates. Support Save the Children, Sri Lanka.
Typhoon Dolphin made landfall in Zhejiang this week, subjecting a vital tea production hub to unprecedented rainfall. Simultaneously, the Global Center for Jasmine Cultivation in the South continues to navigate the aftermath of severe seasonal inundation. The typhoon produced winds of about 150 kilometers an hour, but wind was only the beginning. Reuters reports that from August 7th through 11th, Zhejiang received an average of 215 millimeters of rain, the most ever associated with a typhoon making landfall in the province. Taizhou, where Typhoon first came ashore, averaged 438 millimeters. 13 weather stations across China broke single-day rainfall records as Dolphin's enormous moisture field continued inland. Flooding, landslides, and transportation disruptions followed. More than 1 million people were evacuated across eastern China before and during the storm. Roads were flooded, flights were canceled, and authorities repeatedly warned of landslides in mountainous areas. For tea, Zhejiang deserves particular attention. It is one of China's major tea-producing provinces, and its tea gardens occupy precisely the terrain made vulnerable by a storm like Dolphin. Hillsides where extraordinary rainfall can wash away soil, overwhelm drainage, block rural roads, and isolate factories. The most important qualification is that China has not yet released a reliable province-wide estimate of the acreage of tea destroyed or the metric tons of tea lost. Record rainfall may not result in the equivalent loss of tea, but the disruptions are certainly real. Tea bushes can survive storms that temporarily make harvesting impossible. Roads disappeared beneath landslides, electricity failed, factory access was interrupted. In other words, tea can remain physically present in the garden while becoming difficult or expensive to harvest, manufacture, and deliver. Fuding, the northern Fujian home of China's internationally important white tea industry, appears to have avoided the extraordinary rainfall experienced further north in Zhejiang. Dauphin's eventual landfalls were Zhejiang rather than Fujian. Reuters reported nearly 99,000 people evacuated in Fujian as a precaution, but there is still no credible evidence of widespread destruction of Fuding white tea gardens or factories. Meanwhile, another Chinese tea supply chain is recovering from a different weather disaster. In Hangzhou, in Guangxi, known as the world's jasmine capital, extreme July flooding struck jasmine fields at the height of the summer flowering season. Xinhua's latest recovery report says about 110,000 mu of jasmine fields were affected across 9 townships, and 31 jasmine tea companies suffered damages. Hangzhou has about 180,000 mu planted in jasmine, nearly 3/5 of which was touched by the disaster. That matters globally. Hangzhou produces approximately 80% of China's jasmine flowers and about 60% of the world's total production. These flowers are the essential ingredient used repeatedly to scent authentic jasmine tea. The good news is that jasmine is recovering. Xinhua reported flowers being harvested early in August. Earlier industry estimates suggested production could take roughly 2 months to gradually return to pre-flood levels. But flowers lost during peak bloom cannot be recovered later, and that influences both availability and the cost of repeatedly scented higher-grade jasmine teas. Business Insight. No one now puts the probability of a very strong El Niño event above 90%, with 69% chance that the October to December 2026 episode will reach historic levels. China's extreme weather underscores 2 critical tea supply vulnerabilities. The first, geographic concentration. With Hangzhou producing about 60% of the world's jasmine flowers, a single local flood can affect the entire global industry. And consider deliverability versus availability. Typhoon Dolphin show that surviving bushes matter little if washed-out roads, landslides, power outages, or factory shutdowns prevent tea from reaching buyers. Climate resilience now requires evaluating regional concentration, local infrastructure risk, and the speed of supply chain recovery. Flood damage to approximately 30 tea gardens has placed tea at the center of Assam's recovery effort. A destructive wave of flooding swept through the upper Assam tea belt after heavy rain, and a reported cloudburst in neighboring Nagaland sent water surging into rivers flowing towards the Brahmaputra Valley. The Nazira subdivision of Sivasagar was among the areas hardest hit. Flooding was also reported around Jorhat, Golghat, and Tiok. The Tea Association of India said almost every estate in the affected Nazira area was submerged. The water entered fields and factories and also worker housing, hospitals, schools, and roads. Assam Minister Ramesh Teli said approximately 30 gardens had suffered serious damage and could require at least a month to recover. But that estimate appears to describe the initial return to operations, not complete rehabilitation. The Tea Research Association at Toklai has visited the affected area. It reports that relief efforts remain underway and says that more attention must now turn to recovery for tea workers and their families. A relief camp operating inside a tea estate at Tiok illustrates how closely the humanitarian and production emergencies are connected. The tea loss has not been quantified. There is no verifiable public estimate of the plant acreage inundated or the volume of green leaf and made tea lost. Timing matters. July is an important production month immediately following Assam's prize second flush. Tea that cannot be plucked at the proper stage cannot be recovered later. becomes overgrown while factories remain idle without fresh leaf. Longer-term damage will depend on the depth and duration of the flooding. Prolonged waterlogging can suffocate tea roots. Fast-moving water can strip topsoil, expose roots, and destroy drains, roads, and young bushes. Silt and contaminated water can delay the safe reopening of factories and worker settlements. The wider disaster has killed 100 people and affected more than 700,000, according to Assam's chief minister, who estimated statewide repairs and rehabilitation will cost more than 1,000 crore. It's about 105 million USD. The test now is not simply how quickly factories can restart. Recovery must also restore worker housing, health care, schools, water, supplies, roads, soil, and damaged tea fields. TBiz South America senior editor Horacio Bustos writes that Argentina's geographical indication for tea is moving from government registration into active commercial use. The national government protected the name Tea Argentino in December 2024. The current development is in its implementation. Producers and manufacturers are adopting the production, auditing, and traceability requirements needed to place the GI seal on their tea. In Misiones, government reports that 15 companies now participate in the system. They range from artisanal and specialty producers to cooperatives and industrial exporters. Participating factories must demonstrate that their tea comes from the designated region of Misiones in northeastern Corrientes. Technical audits examine production processes, quality records, and traceability before companies authorized to use the seal. The GI links Argentine tea to one of the world's southernmost commercial tea regions. Its relatively high latitude, rolling terrain, and iron-rich red soils contribute to a profile described as smooth and subtly sweet with relatively low astringency. Argentine tea is also valued for producing a bright, translucent, cold infusion. Argentina remains best known as a large volume supplier of black tea for blends and iced teas, but its specialty producers also manufacture white, yellow, green, black, and oolong teas. The GI gives both sectors a common protected identity. It also offers a direct financial incentive. Qualifying origin-certified exports displaying the required markings can receive an additional government reimbursement equal to 0.5% of the export value. Business Insight. Registration protects an origin, but it takes market adoption to determine whether that protection creates value. Argentina has now entered a more difficult stage of converting from a government designation to a quality promise recognized by buyers. The participation of 15 companies gives the initiative useful scale, while audits provide the discipline needed to protect its credibility. The seal will command a premium only if exporters consistently link it to a traceable origin with dependable quality and a recognized sensory profile. Argentina is no longer simply declaring that its tea is distinctive. Its producers are beginning to take that distinction to market. The Week 32 Tea Price Report for the period ending August 7th is sponsored by the East Africa Tea Trade Association, EATTA, owners of the Mombasa Tea Auction since 1956. Tea markets closed Week 32 with mixed headline prices but a consistent trading pattern. Buyers remained active for immediate coverage and continued to reserve their strongest bids for clean, well-made teas. Colombo improved selectivity as better seasonal high-grown and low-grown descriptions drew support, while weaker invoices remained irregular. North India eased on the latest official benchmark despite active participation from major blenders and internal buyers. Mombasa maintained good but selective demand with brighter BP1s, cleaner PF1s, and dependable dust grades outperforming plainer teas. Indonesia was the least representative market, Cancellations in a catalog weighted towards secondary and off grades weakened the average, even though mainstream Orthodox and CTCTs were generally steady to firm. In Colombo, prices averaged $3.58 per kilo, up 3 cents versus the reconstructed week 31 benchmark. In North India, prices averaged $2.37 per kilo, down 4 cents versus the last available official average for week 31. In Mombasa, prices averaged $2.14 per kilo, up 2 cents versus sales 29. In Indonesia, prices averaged $2.39 per kilo, down 2 cents versus the prior indicative week 31 benchmark. The structural support remains as much as supply costs. Kenya's shilling and Sri Lanka's rupee were comparatively stable, limiting pressure for exporters to discount. India's weaker rupee supported dollar competitiveness but increased exposure to imported energy and packaging. Oil recovered late in the week while Gulf and Red Sea route risk kept freight, insurance, and working capital cost elevated. The takeaway is straightforward. This is not a broad rising or falling market. Price realization depends increasingly on quality, immediate buyer need, and the exporter's cost of executing the trade. That's the tea price report for week 32, ending 7 August 2026. And now, a word from this week's sponsor, Brew Maker One.
Hello, I'm Bogdan, a passionate tea drinker and the inventor of the ultimate tea machine, the Brew Maker One. Preparation is key to making fine tea. Sequential steepings deliver the best taste possible and unlock the true value of whole leaf teas and botanicals. Brew automates that process without using any pots or capsules. This simple-to-operate, smartphone-controlled device stores steeping profiles to consistently make great tea at the push of a button. Brew also reduces time, waste, and energy. That's because I engineered the brew to remember control settings for temperature, brewing time, and quantity. Using my patented process lets you stack steep simply and conveniently.
Each vendor is an expert on their particular tea selection. They've chosen them sometimes right in the tea fields, so they know each of the vendors who are there selling tea are going to be sampling some of their best and favorite teas and talking about them and letting people know what makes this special or what makes that special. Even some of our teaware makers, we have wonderful potters there. They're also brewing tea, sometimes using their beautiful pottery. So each of the 60 booths is an experience in itself, where you have expert tea lovers trying to transfer that love of tea to everybody there with a cup waiting for a taste of tea.
Festival coordinator Andrew Goodman and Virginia Wright, president of the Puget Sound Tea Education Association, are in the spotlight to explain what makes this year's gathering distinctive, how first-time visitors can approach dozens of choices without feeling overwhelmed, and why longtime attendees treat the festival as both an educational experience and an annual reunion. The Northwest Tea Festival is presented by the nonprofit Puget Sound Tea Education Association. The association's mission focuses on tea education, community, and broader public engagement with tea culture. Last year's festival attracted approximately 4,000 tea enthusiasts to the Seattle Center. Andrew, Virginia, thank you both for joining me on the program. I'm eagerly anticipating the 16th edition of this venerable event. Virginia, how does the festival help a curious newcomer explore without feeling overwhelmed?
And I think one of the really benefits to the festival is that you have so many different experiences all in space. So people can visit the different vendor booths to taste things that they don't know about. And there's low commitment. You're not buying teaware, buying tea to figure out, you can learn what you're interested in and then also participate in the presentations to learn. And I think that the biggest thing is just that there's a broad spectrum of experiences for people.
That freedom to taste and ask questions matters even more when the selection spans much of the tea-growing world. Andrew, what can visitors discover here that they are unlikely to find in an ordinary shop?
After our success in 2025, we started early in looking for vendors and presenters to be part of the tea festival this year. Our intent was to widen the scope of people that were coming. We wanted to have people with teas, of course, from the great tea growing countries, China, Taiwan, Japan, India, but it was also my goal to have African teas represented and Korean teas represented, and with great interest now with Southeast Asian teas to have Vietnamese teas represented. Because we started a little earlier this year and sent out invitations, we got a tremendous response from the vendor community, and we were able to choose, and we were able to pick, and we're able to make a great selection of teas from all over. Many of these are people that we knew, but there were other people who've been trying to get into the festival for years, and in reading their application and in reading what they had to say, it was very exciting to see we were broadening. So you really couldn't find something like this going into a tea shop. You couldn't find it going into a tea supermarket if there were such a thing. Tea is grown worldwide. It's consumed worldwide. And we wanted to have people coming, attendees, to experience teas and learn about teas from all over. You know, education is our mission. So in having such a great group of vendors this year, it really serves that purpose. And someone who's a tea expert is going to find things of interest, but someone who never had anything but a cup of tea at grandma's house when they were a kid, they're also going to learn. So we have a great range and a broad spectrum of interests for our attendees.
The breadth is impressive, but a festival becomes memorable when visitors can turn sampling into understanding. Virginia, beyond tasting, where does discovery happen during the weekend?
Being exposed to other people's practice with tea and different teas that I haven't seen is a major part of it. There's always things to learn from other vendors or from the people who have, if I were just a visitor, I would learn so much from the vendors just talking to people about what their own tea specialties are.
A first visit can feel ambitious. Dozens of booths, presentations, workshops, and tea bar sessions. The organizers have worked to make that abundance easier to navigate. Andrew, what does admission include, and how should a newcomer plan the day?
Well, we've been at the Seattle Center Exposition Hall for 5 or 6 years now, and it's the third part of Seattle Center where we've had the festival. We keep growing and we keep learning. So from the very start, when people buy their tickets, we try to make that easier, and we encourage people to buy them online ahead of time. We've streamlined the process of getting people into the festival. It took a while to get everyone processed. Now our goal is to have everyone in the room and ready to go at 10 a.m. if they choose to be there that early. We start our presentations and we start our workshops and we start our tea bar educational experiences at 11 so people can kind of get the lay of the land and walk around. We continually try to improve by learning, We asked the attendees what they thought of the festival the prior year. We listened to them. We asked the vendors what they liked and what they didn't like from the prior year. We listened to them. So it's a method of continuous improvement. We want the experience to be as positive as possible. And what we do now is you buy your admission ticket and everything else is free. Of course, unless you want to buy some tea or teaware, but all of the workshops, all of the tea bar educational experiences, everything is free. You get a lovely cup, you get a program. A number of our vendors are putting educational materials about black teas, about oolong teas into the gift bag that everyone gets. So people walk away with a nice little collection of things before they even start. We try to make it as user-friendly as we can. And I want to stress it's a continuous improvement process, and we learn from our attendees and from our vendors. We try to listen to them. Another important thing is our volunteers. We have over 125 people who come for the 2 days to help. They're an important audience, so we listen to them too, and they have contact with everyone. So it's really a triumvirate. It's the attendees, the vendors, and the volunteers that make the festival as enticing and as interesting to people as it is.
The festival's educational mission is only part of its staying power. It also brings together vendors, volunteers, and tea drinkers who may see one another only once a year. Virginia, what does this gathering contribute to the tea community itself?
I was thinking about, so one of the things that's important about the festival is also the camaraderie of the vendors with each other. It's so being able to get all of these local tea businesses in the same place is actually really valuable for the vendors also. I think one of the things that's really wonderful about the tea community is that the people who own tea businesses and tea organizations are generally not competitive with each other. They're very collaborative. And there's this sense of camaraderie around the concept of tea itself and tea cultures. And that is felt really strongly at the tea festival when everyone is together.
Andrew, why do people return, and why should first-time visitors buy their tickets early?
The founders, Julie, Doug, James, a couple of other people, really were tea lovers, and their idea was to get people together. When we applied for our 501c3, the Puget Sound Tea Education Association, we chose tea education as our mission. So for me, that is over everything. Teaching people about tea, from the very simplest, what is the leaf, what's the name of the plant, to the most complex charcoal roasting, everything in there. But the piece that is amazing to me is that it becomes a reunion for people who have been coming year after year, 15, 16, 17, 18 years. Of course, we had the COVID in there for a while. It's a wonderful get-together of people who maybe only see their friends once a year or twice a year. Certainly with the kind of restrictions we have now and travel being diminished, people come to the festival because they love seeing their friends. They love experience and learning what's happened over the years. So it's as much a reunion of tea lovers and dedicated tea people, welcoming to new people, as it is anything else. I think they all work very well together. It's a very congenial group of people, and they love seeing one another, and they love seeing the tea. They love seeing the vendors. You know, many of the vendors return year after year after year. And our platinum sponsor this year, Sugimoto Tea, they've been with us since the very beginning. In looking back through the records, Kyohei, who runs the company here in the USA, presented at the very first tea festival. I believe it was in 2010, and he continues to be a part of it. So it's people coming back from the vendor community as well as our attendees, the tea lovers. It builds. 1 and 1 become 3. It's really a great experience for everybody. People stay the whole day. Some people stay for the whole 2 days just to be part of that excitement. I'm not going to let this end also without thanking and calling out the over dozen year-long volunteers who meet sometimes monthly. Some of us meet more often than that, each with a specialty within the whole organization, each with a great deal of experience. And without those dedicated people, our jobs would be a lot harder. We continually strive to bring new people into the group as well. And I think this year we got 2 or 3, maybe 4 people who would be part of this team and be part of this community that gets together to run it. There's a lot of pride with the people who meet our planning committee, all of our various subcommittees. There's a lot of pride of ownership that we want to put on the best thing we can. And without that team, we would be lost.
The 2026 Northwest Tea Festival takes place Saturday and Sunday, September 26th and 27th, in the Exhibition Hall at Seattle Center. Tickets are available online. Buying ahead is the simplest way to spend more of the weekend tasting, learning, and meeting the people behind tea. Visit nwtfestival.org for tickets, the program, vendors, and visitor information. That's northwesttfestival.org. Our guests today were Virginia Wright and Andrew Goodman of the Northwest Tea Festival and the Puget Sound Tea Education Association. Intrigued by what you heard in today's podcast? Would you like to learn more from our global network of tea biz journalists and tea experts? Remember to visit the Tea Biz website for more comprehensive coverage. That's www.t-biz.com. Thanks for listening. Farewell till next week.
Produced by Adavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.